Good to see you guys here. I'm just going to start out telling you a little story that I ran across when I was reading one of our church members' blogs. And it's a news story about this girl named Sarah, all 5'2" of her. And she was playing for her college team in a conference game. And whoever won this game would determine who went to the playoffs and a chance to play, obviously, for the national title. And Sarah's just one of those typical workhorse kids. You know, you go out and play the game, nothing special. You're certainly not terrible because you're obviously playing. But she got a hold of one of these pitches and just sent it out over the center field fence. And so she took off running, and she actually missed first base, and so she stopped and went to turn around and tag up on it. And when she did that, she blew out her knee. And so she's on the ground, and she crawls over to first base, and she's sitting there crying, and her coach is like, "Your teammates cannot help you, because if they touch you, you're going to be out." And the umpire is like, "You can, put in a pinch runner, but it'll just be a single, because that's all the further you got." And so they're playing this other team. And the first baseman, her name's Mallory, from the other team, who happens to be the home run champion right now in this conference, says, "Can I help her?" There's no rule against it, the umpire says. So she stands her up and says, which leg is it? She says it's her left leg. He says, "Okay." And she calls over somebody else, and the shortstop comes over. Her name was Liz. And they pick up this girl, and they walk her to the bases, and they stop so that she can drop her right leg and touch the base. And then they go to third base, touch the base, and then they go to home plate, touch the base, because she got a home run. It just seemed fair. It seemed like it was the right thing to do to let this girl touch all the bases. And what they didn't know when they volunteered for this is that this girl, Sarah, had never in her whole entire career, she was a senior in college, never in high school, never in college, and this could have been their last game, never, ever, ever hitting a home run. And so to make her come off would have been almost doubly wrong, right? They did something that was right. And you can see exactly what it looked like. They carried her around the bases, the other team. Now here's the kicker. The other team lost. The home run was a 3-run shot. They ended up losing 4-2. This was in the second inning that this happened. So they had a little more left to play. They figured maybe they'd be generous. If you're taking notes today, I know that there's a lot of people in this room right now that are in maybe blended families. Somebody who was maybe divorced before or married prior. Maybe you have a kid with somebody, but you never did get married, but you have custody, and now you're married together, and you've blended a family, and you have kids of your own. I know some of you are from broken families, where mom and dad just didn't know how to work it out, and so they didn't. They just walked out. Maybe they walked out on you, maybe they walked out on each other. I know people who've had parents that have committed suicide. They just walked out on life. And so I'm not here today to tell you that, everything's going to be all right. I'm here to tell you that it can be all right. And I share that story with you to say this. Say, blessed families, just like that team, blessed families, they want what's right more than they want to be right. Or like that team, they wanted to do what's right more than they wanted to be right. In other words, more than they wanted to win, they wanted to do what's right. Some of us in our families right now, we've got issues with the people that are in it. Maybe they're stepkids, half-brothers and sisters, stepmoms, stepdads. And instead of wanting to do what's right and honoring them and learning how to get along and showing respect like we talked about last week, most of us, we just want to win. We want to be right. Don't tell me what I can and cannot do. I know. I want to be right. But I'm here to tell you right now that your family and that situation will never be blessed unless you determine that you want to do what's right more than you want to just be right. And I'm here to tell you something else, that blended families can be blessed. How many of you have ever been cleaning? At my house on Saturday mornings, we call them and you can steal this if you want because it's great. It hasn't done anything for my kids' attitude, but it's great. We call it house blessings. Not chores, it's house blessings. We're going to bless the house today. And so on Saturdays, we ask for, an hour or so to bless the house. And that means clean. And if you've ever cleaned with bleach, you know that it's got a little warning on it, right? And I don't know if you remember this, back when I was a kid, we had Mr. Yuck stickers. They were little green stickers, and it was, instead of a smiley face, it was a green face, and he was going like this. He's Mr. Yuck. It means don't eat that. Like a little kid's going to know that, right? But anyway, on the bleach, it says, do not mix this with what? Ammonia. Why is that? Because it creates a toxic gas when you put those things together, right? It's deadly. So I brought some, I'm just kidding. Bleach and ammonia, they don't mix. It's not something that we're supposed to blend together. But how many of you have ever maybe taken ice cream and strawberries, maybe a little bit of milk and cream and sugar, and poured it in a blender and blended it? What does that make? Like a smoothie? Yogurt? Those things go together, right? That's like a blessing. Some of us, we're in a situation in our families where we're trying not necessarily to get it wrong because we're just trying to be right. And we're more like the bleach and ammonia mixture. We're toxic. People don't even like to be around us. We don't like to be around each other. I want to tell you that you can be a blessed, blended family. Now I'm going to tell you how. And we're looking at David and the life of David. And so if you've got your Bibles, that's good. If you don't, that's bad. If you need one, you can pick one up. I think they put some in the bathroom, so that way you don't have to ask for one and be embarrassed. You can just go to the bathroom and walk out with a Bible. It's amazing. Seriously, we don't want you to be embarrassed to have to ask for a Bible, so just go and grab one. Just go to the bathroom and take it with you. Nobody will know that you didn't bring it in there with you. But you need to bring your Bibles. Why? Because I don't know more than God. God knows more than me. And so if we're going to look at God's Word, you need to be listening to that, not just what I have to say. If I say something wrong, you write it on your connection card, like they so eloquently spoke about. If you have questions, write it on your connection card. So blended families can be blessed. Got your Bibles, turn to 2 Samuel. Chapter 9, we're going to tackle a few verses of them here. We're going to actually tackle a section. But David, let me just paint a picture here for you. Last week we talked about how David was king, he was anointed king, but Saul happened to be the acting king and he wanted to kill him. Saul and his son Jonathan died, and so David became king of Judah and then king of Israel. And then he moved to Jerusalem and he brought the ark, the covenant, because he wanted to show respect to God and give it a home. We talked about all that, what a home is, and how if you don't show respect, you'll get no blessing, or without respect, there's no blessing. And so here we are, David settled in, the ark is there, everything's good, the way it's supposed to go. And David says now, David asked, is there anyone still left in the house of Saul to whom I can show kindness for Jonathan's sake? Now, if you don't know, Jonathan was David's best friend, which is kind of funny because Jonathan was a guy from the other side of the tracks. Jonathan was Saul's son. He was like the son of the guy who wanted to kill David. But David and he were friends, and they made an agreement that they would love and support each other, take care of one another. And so David, now that he's all settled, says, is there anyone else in the house of Saul to whom I can show kindness for Jonathan's sake, my best friend? Because we made an oath, we made a promise. What does that look like? David's king. Stinking Saul and Jonathan are dead. What's the point? Why bother? Well, because he wanted to be blessed. And some of us are sitting around in the same way going, she's not my mom. She's not my dad. They married her. She's my stepmom. And we have an attitude about it. How do we fix that? How do we go from that kind of blended family, ammonia and bleach, to a blessed family? We do this thing. We take the initiative. We take the initiative. The one who is more mature is the one who's going to act first. And you can see this in your marriage relationship. You can see this with your friends. But I challenge you, the next time you're in an argument, What does it take? Does it take more to just sit there and pout and call them names and put stuff on your MySpace and Facebook and all that, just not being nice to them, texting mean messages? Does it take more maturity to do that? Or does it take a little bit more maturity to just go and try and bridge that gap that's been created? Maybe all because of that. Even though Saul was trying to kill David, David says, is there anybody else left in the house of Saul to whom I can show kindness for Jonathan's sake? He took the initiative. So if you want to have a blessed family, that's a blended family, you need to take the initiative. So a little while later, they go and they find this guy. They find out his name, and you're going to love this one, Mephibosheth. Go ahead and say that. It's really fun. Mephibosheth. Mephibosheth. That's fun, isn't it? Go ahead. I know y'all want to say it. Say it out loud. Mephibosheth. See, it's fun, isn't it? Okay. Mephibosheth is Jonathan's son. It's Jonathan's son. And let me just give you a little background. There was a time when they were killing all of Jonathan's sons, and so the nurse picked him up and ran away with him. And when she fell, he fell, and when he fell, he became crippled in his feet. So he couldn't walk. So he's kind of like one of these reject kids now. He's a parentless cripple. I'm sure David was sitting there going, yes, I get to bring me a parentless, crippled kid into my house. That's not what his reaction was. His reaction was something more like this. In chapter 9, verses 9 and 10. The king then summoned Ziba, Saul's servant, and he said to him, I have given your master's grandson everything that belonged to Saul and his family. You and your sons and your servants are to farm the land for him and bring in the crops so that your master's grandson may be provided for, and Mephibosheth, grandson of your master, will always eat at my table. Now Ziba had 15 sons and 20 servants. You just make sure you understand this. Mephibosheth is the grandson of Saul, the son of Jonathan, who was against, or Saul was, against David. They're all dead. David's king now. He's in charge. Why would he bring another descendant from that side in? Because he wanted to show kindness for Jonathan's sake. The kid's crippled, so he can't do what he wants to do. He can't walk. He can't get around. He can't farm his land. As a matter of fact, he's from a place called Lo Debar, which means no pasture. Means he's probably having a hard time flat out living because there's no pasture. And they bring him in there, and he needs to have a servant, somebody who takes care of him because he can't walk. And so there's a guy, Ziba, who does that. And so not only does David invite Mephibosheth over, but he invites Ziba and all his servants. And he had, what did it say here? 15 sons and 20 servants. Now let's just assume for a second that they're all by one woman. 15 sons, no daughters. And 20 servants. I'm guessing some of the sons might have been married. I'm guessing some of the servants might have had wives. So we're not talking just, another 30, 40 people here. We're talking 50, 60, 70 people that are coming. And David's taking care of them. So not only did he take the initiative to do something, but what did he do? He was willing to pay the price. He was willing to pay the price. He didn't just hand over a little bit of food once in a while. He handed over all the land that belonged to Saul. And he said, farm it. He said, I'm not taking anything from it. He says, you make sure that you take it and raise it and farm it and use that. I heard a story. I didn't hear a story. I read it in the news. It just happened this week. There's a pastor of a church down in Texas who wasn't willing to pay the price. He wasn't willing to pay the price of discipline, honesty, of accountability. And he got caught, 52-year-old guy got caught driving 200 miles in a sex sting operation to do whatever he was going to do. I'm sure he was going to help her with her homework. A 13-year-old girl. Or at least what he thought was a 13-year-old girl. Well, why did he end up there? Because he wasn't willing to pay the price. He wasn't willing to do the hard work first. And in your families, whether this is your first marriage, whether it's your mom and dad that are originally the only ones, whether it's your half-brother, sister, step-brother, sister, it doesn't matter. You got to be willing to do the work if you want the blessing. You got to be willing to pay the price. And we don't live in a country where people get kidnapped very often. And if they do, they're not very often held for ransom, despite what without a trace might indicate. Okay, it doesn't happen every week, and not in New York every week. But it does happen overseas a lot. It does happen in Iraq a lot. And oftentimes, they'll kidnap contractors. These are like American people or people from other countries, and they'll ask for a ransom. Now, let's just say that was your kid that was over there in another country, and he got kidnapped, and they sent you a note or an email or a text or however they do it, I don't know, a courier on a pony, it doesn't matter. And they said, we want $600,000. Let's just make it an even million. I mean, what's the difference, right? We want your money. Sorry, I'm not willing to pay. Is that what you do? It's just my son. I got others. You can have them. What do parents do? What do people do? They figure out a way to get the money. Every movie that's ever come out where somebody's been kidnapped, what do? You figure out a way to get the money, right? You do whatever you can to get them back. And yet, in our families, when we've got problems, we don't take the initiative. We sit there and pout and say, I'm not the one who's wrong. They need to do it. They need to fix it. They did it. It's their fault. I ain't saying anything until they apologize. So we don't take the initiative. And then we don't even consider paying the price of asking forgiveness, humbling ourselves, telling them that we were wrong, saying I'm sorry. We don't do that. That just costs too much. If you want a blessed family, you got to be willing to take the initiative to pay the price. And then a little bit later, at the end of this chapter, we read our favorite character. His new name is Mephibosheth. So Mephibosheth, he ate at David's table like one of the king's sons. You can underline that part. Mephibosheth, who's not part of the family, ate at David's table like one of the king's sons. Verse 13. And Mephibosheth lived in Jerusalem because he always ate at the king's table, and he was crippled in both feet. I'm thinking David got it right in this case, didn't he? He had a pretty blessed, blended family. He took an enemy of his own family, and he brought him into his house. And not only that, I'm guessing because he was crippled and he's eating at the king's table, that David didn't, have him live 3 miles away. He probably, and I don't have any support for this other than the fact that he was crippled and he ate at the king's table every day. He probably actually lived with David in his palace. And that's blending a family, isn't it? That's really taking care of somebody that you really didn't have to. I mean, he could have waited for Mephibosheth to come up and say, bless me. And that's what some of you are waiting for. You're waiting for somebody to come up and say, bless me. You need to take the initiative. You're willing to pay the price. And here's the last part. Put forth some real effort. Put forth some real effort. Now, you guys all know what happens when people go into training for sports and stuff like that. The ones who are really good are the ones who put the most time into it, the ones who put the most effort into it. The ones who are mediocre are the ones like me. Just show up and play and then go home and say, oh, I'm hurt. I heard the story. I don't know who the golfer is, and I don't remember. I couldn't find it. I was trying to Google it and all this stuff, but I know I heard it before. I may have read it in a magazine. But you know how golfers a lot of times, especially you think of Tiger Woods, a lot of us, even if we don't like golf, we'd be willing to learn it if we could make that much money. And so we think, Tiger Woods, man, if I could just be like Tiger Woods, that'd be great. Well, other people think that before Tiger Woods, there were other golfers. And there was this guy, and I want to say it was Fuzzy Zeller, but I don't know. And if you don't know golf, it doesn't matter. But there's a guy, and he was out on the putting green, and he'd been, over hitting balls at the range. And some guy is just sitting there watching him. And he goes, man, I really wish I could play golf like you. And apparently this golfer had a really bad day or was having a bad week or something because he'd totally turn on and snap and say, no, you don't. You're just stupid. Golfers don't talk like that. Golfers are like some of the most polite people when it comes to sports. But here this golfer is somebody says, I really wish I could play like you. No, you don't. You're stupid. You don't have any idea what it takes to play like me. And he starts ticking off all the things that he has to do. How he's played until his hands are bloody, just trying to get his swing right. How he's played into the night, how he's been, bit by rattlesnakes or something. Whatever. He just goes on and on and on about all the things. The time away from his family, the money that it cost him because he never won until he got to the point where he was. He's like, you don't want to. You're not willing to put in the effort that it takes to get to where I am. And again, some of you look around and you see families, you see other families, and you're like, man, why can't I have a family like that? Why can't my mom be like that? Why can't my brothers and I get along like that? Could it be because you're not willing to put in the effort? You haven't taken the initiative. You're just kind of waiting for them to come and apologize. You're not willing to pay the price, and you're not willing to put in the effort. That's why you're not blessed. Now, let me just kind of put this in a bigger picture that can apply to every one of us. Do you realize that when God sent Jesus Christ to earth, and he sent him to death in our place, that he did that so that he could blend us into his family, so that he could adopt us into his family? We don't belong there. You know that, right? We don't belong there. We're not part of the Trinity, and yet God wants us there, and the only way we can get there is through Jesus Christ. We have a blended family if you're a believer in Jesus Christ. And so you were willing at some point, if you are a believer, to humble yourself, to take the initiative in acknowledging Jesus Christ. He was the one who took the initiative in coming to you. He's the one who paid the price. He's the one who put forth all the effort. All we have to do is just say, okay, man, I don't deserve this, but I accept it. And then we become part of that blessed family of God. We can become a blessed family by acting like Jesus did, taking the initiative and putting forth the effort and paying the price. I want you guys to get this. David set a good example, but David didn't always set a good example. You realize that David, he had a lot of wives. If you turn back to chapter 3, which you can check me out, but he had 6 wives right there, and he had 6 kids. It just says, hey, this one, to this wife, to this wife, to this wife, to this wife. We're all born in Hebron, which was before he ever showed up in Jerusalem. So here's David, 6 wives, 6 kids, and I'm sure they were all just happy. I didn't even say that right, did I? That sounded like I was speaking in tongues. They lived happily ever after. No, they didn't. It wasn't the perfect blending of a family like the Brady Bunch. They had problems. They had big problems. As a matter of fact, the firstborn son, his name was Amnon, was in love with the thirdborn's sister. Her name was Tamar. So let's just call them Al and T. Okay? Al loves T, but it's his sister. And so he gets a little frustrated that he can't do anything to her. So he devises this plan to get closer to her. He says, I'm going to get sick. I'm going to ask my sister to come in. If there's kids here, you might have to explain this. I'm giving you the heads up. But this is what's in the Bible, and so this is what we talk about. He says, I'm going to pretend I'm sick. Send in my sister, please, to feed me. Would that work at your house? Yeah, right. Your sister chucked crackers at you. Hope you feel better. Apparently not back then. And so back then, he lays down, he's in his bed. Would you please send T to come and feed me? Sure, Al, we'll do that. And so she comes in, and when she gets there, he's like, everybody else leave, please. Close the door. I'm sure she's thinking, what's up with this? And he says, come over here. Feed me with your hand. Okay? She comes over there, takes hold of her. And she pretty much knows what's going to happen. He wants to rape her. She's like, don't do this. Don't do this evil thing. I'm sure that the king would allow me to be your wife, even though that's forbidden by the law. She's like, there's got to be a way. He doesn't listen. He rapes her. And then he hates her. Al's like, all right, been there, done that, get out. No. Sending me away would be worse than the thing you just did. He goes, I don't care, get out. He sends her away. And all this happens. And David doesn't know what's going on. David chose, if you're taking notes here, he chose not to be involved. And we'll read more about this as we go through the rest of this series here. But David chose not to be involved. Here's the fallout. T has been attacked by her brother Al, or Tamar has been attacked by Amnon. And so her brother, her natural brother, her blood brother, his name's Absalom. He says to her, has that Amnon, your brother, been with you? Be quiet now, my sister. He is your brother. Don't take this thing to heart. What kind of stupid advice is that? Don't take this thing to heart. And Tamar lived in her brother Absalom's house, a desolate woman. Now here's where he gets involved. Tell me how he did. When King David heard all this, he was furious. Anyway, Absalom never said a word to Amnon, either good or bad. He hated Amnon because he had disgraced his sister Tamar. That's it. That is all David did. He got mad. What? He got mad? He didn't do anything about it? No. As a matter of fact, if you guys want to go ahead and read, we'll talk about this in the next couple weeks. He didn't say anything. He didn't do anything. He didn't punish anyone. So Amnon rapes his sister, big deal. Absalom hates him, big deal. Absalom decides he wants to kill him. A while later, David still never talked to him. And he does. And then what? David does nothing. Except cries when Absalom runs away. Do you think there's a problem in this family? Here David gets it right. It's not even his own stinking kids. He brings Mephibosheth into his family. He blends it together because he takes the initiative. He's willing to pay the price. He puts forth the effort on a daily basis because he makes sure that Mephibosheth, the cripple, lives in his house and eats at his table like a king's son every day. And yet his own sons are out there beating each other up, killing each other, attacking each other. And he does nothing. See, Absalom's name, like Absalom, like brother of peace, peaceful father kind of thing. You're right. In name only. And some of you are a family in name only. You're a family because you live in the same house, but there's no peace in your family. There's no blendedness. There's no blessedness. You're missing out on exactly what God wants for you because you're angry. You're furious like David was. Because you're frustrated that you can't have your way like Amnon was. You hate people that are in your family like Absalom did. And you're not willing to take the initiative to be the more mature person, to do what's right instead of be right. And you wonder why your family's like it is, why you can't be like somebody else. God doesn't want that for you. I'm guessing you don't want that for you, but you might want to keep your pride more than you actually want to bless family. I don't know. But here's where David went wrong. He was not involved. He was not engaged. He didn't say anything. He didn't address it. He didn't do squat. And if you stay the way you're at, with your family, with the relationship you have, with your parents, your brothers and sisters, and even if this is your first marriage, you're not a blended family in the sense that somebody was married before, had kids before, was divorced before. You're just simply two different people who are married in one house. That's a blended family. That's taking two families, making them one. You know? Two become one. That's kind of like blended. And you're not enjoying the blessings of God, it might be because you just have chosen not to be involved and do the dirty work. And I just want to challenge you to be like David was in the first case, which seemed a whole lot more difficult than he was in the second case with kids that were his own. And so what did this do with this family? It broke it. And when we were talking about this a month or so ago, I told Claude, I was going to talk about this and it's going to be, blended, broken, or blessed families. That's what I'm talking about. I was like, I don't like the word broken. It's like there's a problem with it. Well, duh. There's a problem with it. Well, isn't there a nicer name for it? No. There really isn't. There isn't a nicer name for it. This family is broken now. You got brothers who hate each other, sisters who have been beat by other brothers. You've got dads who are just disinterested in the whole thing. This is a broken family. Something's wrong, right? And some of you are in a family, or you came from a family that's exactly like that. I want to tell you something. If you're in a family that's heading down this road, broken families can be avoided. Broken families can be avoided. See, because David didn't only make mistakes with his own kids, he decided to affect other people. And you've probably heard this story before, the story of David and Bathsheba. You ever heard that? Let me just give you the nutshell version. David, all this stuff's going on in his house. He's living in Jerusalem. He's got Mephibosheth at his table. He's got a bunch of kids. He's king. They've conquered a lot of people. That's in chapter 10. That's a good one, by the way. I'll just tell you, maybe you want to read your Bible. Chapter 10 is kind of funny because David sends some people out to go and talk to some other folks, and the people that they're supposed to talk to decide to cut their robes in half right here, so their butts are hanging out, and shave off half their beards. You didn't know the Bible had that kind of stuff, did you? Go read it, chapter 10, and then find out what David did when he found that out. He wasn't happy. But that's another story. In the meantime, David's king. He's conquered everybody. Everybody loves him, so he decides to stay home instead of going off to war. All right, you're king. You can do whatever you want. It's not what kings normally do, but okay. And he stays home. And he goes for a walk one night, and he looks around, and what does he see? A beautiful woman taking a bath. Now, I don't know about you. I'm a guy. I know a lot of you guys are guys. Right? Okay, that's good. And it's hard. I mean, if you see even just a little bit of flesh, like, we've got this radar that's half naked. That's close enough. And we need to train ourselves to not do that. But that's why we're so easily influenced and attracted to things that are totally negative, and we don't pay the price, we don't consider the cost, we don't put forth the effort to protect ourselves from that. That's another story. So David's up on the roof, and he looks down, and he sees this beautiful woman taking a bath. And you can read here with me. So, verse 3, chapter 11, 2 Samuel. David sent someone to find out about her. I mean, who wouldn't, right? Hey, there's a naked woman taking a bath. Let's find out about her. The man said, well, isn't this Bathsheba, the daughter of Eliam, and the wife of Uriah the Hittite? Okay, I want you to circle a couple things here before we read the rest of it. I want you to circle daughter. I want you to circle wife. Was it David's daughter? No. Was it David's wife? No. Which means David's got a problem. Because in verse 4, then David sent messengers to get her. She came to him and he slept with her. She purified herself from her uncleanness. Oh, well, good. I mean, at least we're good with that. Then she went back home. Verse 5. The woman conceived and sent word to David saying, I am pregnant. Problem. We've got a problem. Some of you are in marriages where you found out news, you found out information about your spouse, about your dad, about your mom, your stepbrother, your sister, or whatever. You found something out and you go, oh wow. Didn't see that coming. We got a problem. Some of you have responded appropriately. You've gone to make sure that that's actually the problem. You've checked things out and you've said, okay, well, what are we going to do now? I have a student friend of mine from back when I was down in Florida. He found out that his dad was carrying on like an online affair. His dad left his internet information up. And he was reading it and checking out some of these emails and IMs and stuff like that. He's like, holy cow. Problem. We got a problem. And it immediately changed things. He immediately lost respect for his dad. And remember, like we talked about last week, without respect, there's no blessing. And guess what? There was no blessing in their relationship. This A student, straight-laced, ready to go and do all kinds of stuff, went from A's to not A's. Went from not doing anything to getting in car accidents and smoking pot, sneaking out, all that kind of stuff. All because he found out that his dad was carrying on an online affair. And he didn't do what? He didn't take the initiative to go and talk to his dad. He wasn't willing to pay the price of his dad saying, what are you doing snooping around on the computer? He didn't pour forth the effort to fix it. So what did he have? An unblessed relationship with his dad and his family. He had a problem. He didn't make a very good choice. You're filling in your blanks here. Here's what you need to understand. You might have problems in your family. You might have some information that you came across and you wish you didn't know. But your response is your responsibility. You found out your husband or wife is cheating on you. Problem. But your response is your responsibility. You find out your kid's been sneaking around, going to parties, sleeping around, whatever it is that they were doing. Problem. Your response is your responsibility. So what do you think David's response was? Okay, I'm pregnant. Goody, let's throw a baby shower. I don't think so. Her husband, Uriah, one of David's mighty men, out fighting battles, not because he wanted to, but because that's what you do. And David's home, sleeping with his wife. I mean, it sounds like a Jerry Springer show. But we're going to have the reveal here. We're going to have an interaction. David's got a plan. So what does he do? He invites him back. Come here, Uriah. You've been working too hard. You need a break. Why don't you go home? Sleep with your wife. So he sends him home. What does Uriah do? Sleeps on the porch. David finds out. He goes, dude, what's up with this? I sent you home. Your wife. I mean, she was good looking. You didn't sleep with me. How could I sleep with my wife and enjoy these comforts while the men are out there fighting? I'm not going to do it. Okay, problem's time 2. David still has a choice. His response is still his responsibility. So what does he do? He gets him drunk. Then he sends him home. Okay, I'll sleep with your wife now. What does he do? Doesn't sleep with his wife. Problem times 3. What's David going to do? If you've read the story, if you're familiar with it, you know he makes another bad choice. Really bad response, which he's going to have to pay for. What does he do? He says, fine, you're not going to sleep with your wife, so that hopefully you'll think that you were the one who got her pregnant. We're in trouble. I'm in over my head, but I am the king. So here's a note. It says, it's to the commander. It says, take Uriah, put him on the front line when the fighting is fierce and where it's fiercest. And once that happens, draw back and make sure that he gets killed. So he sends that note with Uriah himself, who carries his own death sentence, and he hands it to his commander, just like a good soldier would. The soldier reads it. He follows the orders. They go where the fighting is fiercest, put Uriah right there, and then draw back. And what happens? Uriah, bam, dead. Problem solved. Right? No. Uriah's dead. But Bathsheba's still pregnant, right? Read with me. 2 Samuel 11. It's the end of the chapter. 26 and 27. When Uriah's wife heard that her husband was dead, she mourned for him. Isn't that sweet? After the time of mourning was over, David had her brought to his house. And she became his wife and bore him a son. I want you to understand this last sentence. But the thing David had done displeased the Lord. That might be the understatement of the year right there, don't you think? Let's see. He slept with another man's wife. He got her pregnant. He decided to try and bring him back and deceive him into sleeping with his wife. Sent him with his own death sentence to the front lines and had him killed. I'm a little displeased. I mean, really. And so I was a little upset. But displeased, that's it? I mean, you're just displeased? I mean, my kid spills Kool-Aid, I'm displeased. Oh, my kid hasn't killed my neighbor. I'd be upset. Displeased. So I looked it up. The word that's used there. Funny. It's funny. It's sometimes translated as to do harm or ill will or evil or wickedness. And so broken homes are caused by something. What are broken homes caused by? Think about it for a second. People that you know, maybe your home, what is broken? What is it caused by? It's caused by this. It's caused by hurt, evil, harm, wickedness, sin. Broken homes are caused by hurt, evil, and harm, which is exactly what that displeased means. In other words, broken homes are caused by what? Displeasing God. See, because the funny thing is, this word displeased, hurt, evil, wicked, all that kind of stuff, ill will, guess what else it's translated as? Broken. Broken. And when we displease God, we create brokenness in relationships. When we do evil, intentionally or not, when we hurt people, when we have ill will towards them, when we try and harm people with our words, with our actions, with our ignoring them, I'm just not going to talk to you anymore. Some of you have that problem going on. I'm not going to say anything. You know, Mama always said, if you can't say anything nice, don't say anything at all. And it's been 3 months, and I ain't talked to you about that. Yeah, okay. That would be harm, that would be wicked, that would be evil, that would be sin, that would be ultimately displeasing God, which leads to exactly where you're at, your brokenness, your broken home. David's home was already broken. It was moving that direction. And because David slept with Bathsheba, he destroyed another home. Did Bathsheba have a part to play? Absolutely. She's an innocent. It's not like she, the king called me, I think. It's the king. No, she had a part to play. But the brokenness in our homes and in our families is caused by hurt and evil and harm and all that kind of stuff that we do that's displeasing to God. So, let me ask you this. Maybe you're on that road, and this might help. You know, okay, yeah, I got to take the initiative. I really don't want to. So I don't know if I'm going to pay the price or not. I might just have to sit on this for a while. And once I start the process, I'm going to have to continue the effort. You understand that. But remember, blessed families, they're more interested in doing what's right than being right. But what if you're past that? What if you're already past the breaking point? What if your home's already broken? What if you're already divorced, you already moved on, already remarried, and let's say you're a kid. What if your parents are already out of the picture, your half-brother, sister's already moved? What? What if you're already past that point? What do you do then? How do you get to the blessed point at that point? I'm just going to read you a little bit of chapter 12. It's not in your notes. It's in your Bible, which I told you earlier you should have brought it. If you didn't, you can get one in the bathroom. Because that's where Bibles belong, right? Let me explain that. Some of you are going, that thing belongs back. Let me explain that. Okay, there's this little thing that I use to remind me that, true or not, at my house it's true, men spend more time in the bathroom when it comes to actually using it. Girls use the mirror, men use the bathroom. It's like a library. That's why we keep books in there, like the Bible. And so one of these things that I was taught earlier and decided to apply, and I'll bless you with this thing too. At least I think it's a blessing. Because you won't forget. Sometimes when you're in the bathroom, you need to push, right? Stick with it. Not getting gross on you. It's just the way it is. Okay, well, push stands for something. Pray until something happens. So when I say the Bible belongs in the bathroom, that's my frame of reference. So next time, men, or women, I suppose, if you need to push when you're in the bathroom, I'm talking about prayer, and there's nothing funny about prayer. Sometimes there is, I guess. Pray until something happens. That's for free. You didn't expect that, did you? I didn't expect that either. There's nowhere in my notes. It had nothing to do with this, but I misspoke, and I may have misspoke for the last 5 minutes. But you won't forget. And so if you want things to change, you pray until something happens, and that's exactly what David did in response to this. His response was his responsibility. Bad response. Woman's pregnant, let's kill the husband. That sounds good. And then I'll marry her. Bad choice. And so in chapter 12, David doesn't understand he's got a problem. There's a prophet. His name was Nathan. And he comes and tells a story about a man who's rich and has a whole bunch of lambs and all kinds of animals that could be used for a sacrifice or even for food. And he compares it to another guy who has just one little lamb that's part of his family that the kids sleep with. And a guest comes into town to visit the king. And the king, rather than going to his own flock, decides to do what? Take the man's only lamb, steal from his family, destroy the family, and eat the thing. And Nathan says, what should happen to that man? David says, what? Do you have your Bibles? We're in chapter 12. What should happen to the man? He should die. He should die. He must pay for the lamb 4 times because he did such a thing. As surely as the Lord lives, the man who did this deserves to die. And at that point, Nathan looked at David and he said, you are the man. You did that exact thing. And he's not saying it in a positive way. You're the man. You're the man, David. You're the man. No, you're the man. And David's response in verse 13 of chapter 12, he says, I have sinned against the Lord. I have sinned against the Lord. Some of us have sinned against the Lord. But when it comes to pushing, when it comes to praying until something happens, David, he started praying. After Nathan had gone home, the Lord struck the child that Uriah's wife had born to David, and he became ill. And David pleaded with God for the child. He fasted, and he went into his house, and he spent the nights lying on the ground. The elders of the household stood beside him to get him up from the ground, but he refused, and he wouldn't eat any food with them. David's praying until something happens. He knows he made a wrong response. He knows that he sinned. He understands that, but he still thinks maybe God will intervene. On the 7th day, the child died. 7 days he prayed and then he laid on his face. The child died. David's servants were afraid to tell him that while the child was dead. For they thought, while the child was still living, we spoke to David and he wouldn't listen to us. How can we tell him that the child is dead? He might do something desperate. David noticed that his servants were whispering among themselves, and he realized the child was dead. Is the child dead, he asked? Yes, they replied, he's dead. Then David got up from the ground. After he washed, put on lotion, changed his clothes, went into the house of the Lord, and he worshipped. Then he went to his own house. At his request, they served him food and he ate. Your response is your responsibility. Broken homes are caused by us displeasing God, but if you think David admitting his sin, paying the price, 7 days on the ground, putting forth the effort, you think that God turned around and blessed him? He sure did. He gave him another son from that same woman, his name was Solomon, who built the temple. The wisest man to ever live. So if you're past the breaking point, what can you do? What can you do to fix it? This, commit to make things right. Just commit to make things right. At my house, when something goes wrong, when one of my kids decides that they're going to yell at their brother or sister, or throw something at their brother or sister, or backtalk to their mom or dad or whatever, we don't say, oh, you need to apologize. That's not it. You need to make things right. How do you make things right? It's funny how this works. You take the initiative. We don't tell them you need to apologize right now. We say, you just need to make things right. Whenever you're ready, I'm here. Up to them then. I'm not going to tell them. And your spouse, your brother, your mom, your dad, whoever, they're not going to tell you what you have to do to make it right, but you know. And that's good, hey, I know I need to make things right, so I'll take the initiative, but man, I don't know if I'm willing to pay the price. They might think I'm stupid. You remember those girls who carried somebody around the bat or the baseball field from the other team? You'd think that they'd be honored as heroes, right? Not by everyone. When I was looking to find some of these pictures, the pictures that I found, the biggest ones I could find, when I was looking, I came across a couple different places on blogs and stuff where people were commenting on it, saying that they were idiots. What about the rest of the team? Talk about being selfish. I mean, if America isn't more concerned with winning, we're a bunch of pansies. I mean, this is what people are saying. These girls themselves have said they've gotten emails from other people saying, I can't believe you did that. That's terrible. What? You know what? I don't think they care. I think they do it again because why? If you want to be blessed, you want to do what's right instead of be right. They don't care if they won. They don't care if people honor them. They wanted to do what's right. We need to know, are you going to do the same thing? How do you make it right? You take the initiative. You're willing to pay the price regardless of what whoever you're talking to might think. Regardless of what they might throw back at you. Oh yeah? Well, you're going to apologize for that. You still need to apologize for this. And they just start, okay, I'll get you when I'm ready. And you need to put forth the effort because it's going to be a continual, ongoing thing. It's not a one-shot deal. You're going to say, hey, you know what, Mom? I'm sorry. I apologize. Would you forgive me? And And she says, sure, and then you're just back to where you were. It's a continual, ongoing thing. But here's the problem. You guys see you've got a little score sheet right there, right? For one player. Little part for a bowling. Mm-hmm. Because if I said, it's 1, 2, 3 strikes, you're... No. I mean, that's right if we're singing a song, but that's not how it is, actually. 1, 2, 3 strikes, you're getting a turkey. That's right. You're a turkey. You just bowled a turkey. See, because life isn't just like baseball. It's not that you just miss. You actually want to get strikes. You want to up your score. And in the process, you're going to knock some things down. You're going to make a little bit of a mess. And that's okay. But here's our problem. When it comes to making things right, we start looking at the other person and we go, well, if they would just, if he would just, if she would just, and we start keeping score for them, right? We start marking down all the things that they've done to hurt you. Don't worry, it's just a train. What they've done to hurt you, you start marking it down. Oh, that. And we start, they're not even worthy of me playing with them. They're your family. So the best way to make things right and keep things right is to keep your own score. Keep your own score. Don't keep everybody else's score. It's not your responsibility. What's your responsibility? Your response. Your response is your responsibility. David's response was his responsibility. What your parents, what your brothers and sisters, what everybody else in the stinking world has done is not your responsibility, and it's not up to you to keep score for them. You keep your own score. And if you see something, if you know something in your life where you were wrong, even if you were just perceived as wrong, maybe you didn't actually do anything wrong. As a matter of fact, I remember getting a ticket one time. I've only gotten like 2 in my life. I still to this day don't understand how this happened. I was literally coming home from school. You drive down the road, you put your blinker on, you take a left. You go 3 blocks, you take a right, you go to the stoplight, you take a left to go home. That's what I did. But before I made my left on the road at the stoplight, so I pull off to the side thinking he needs to pass me. No, he needs to pull in behind me. All right? He comes up and says, you know why I pulled you over? I said, I've got absolutely no idea. And I'm a cocky 16-year-old at this point. He says, because you were speeding. I said, that's impossible. I'm sure you've heard that one before. No 16-year-old ever speeds. That's impossible. He says, no, you were speeding. I said, well, tell me where, because I've really literally only gone about 8 blocks. He goes, back there when you made the turn. I was speeding in the turn? He goes, yeah. Let me get this straight. Let me just ask, sir, can I see your speed gun? No. Well, how do I know I was speeding? Anyway, it went on, and you know what? My response was my responsibility. He was keeping score. It wasn't justified. I did nothing wrong. I literally did nothing wrong. I'm not just telling you this. I'm not just making it up. I'm not trying to justify myself 30 years later or however old I am. I really didn't do anything wrong. And you might have something going on in your house where you've not done something wrong. But if you want to make it right, you need to take the initiative, pay the price, and say, you know what? I don't know what I've done. But I know things aren't the way that they're supposed to be around here. And I've probably got something to do with it, and I want to apologize, and I want to ask your forgiveness. Would you give me another chance? Why would you apologize for something you didn't even do? Because it's the right thing to do. And if you want to be blessed, you want to do what's right instead of be right. Keep your own score. If you haven't done that before, if you've caused problems, band, you guys can come on out here. If you've made some mistakes, it's not too late. That's the helicopter. They're coming to get me because I never paid the ticket. That is kind of fun, isn't it? Incoming! No, if you've made some mistakes, If you haven't done what you're supposed to before, you know what? It's not too late. Don't take and keep your own score. Just do what's right and understand that there is something called grace. There's something called mercy. There's something called another chance. And you can take it. So let me go ahead and pray for you. Lord, I come to you tonight not because I'm perfect. Actually, it's not even night. Obviously, I'm not perfect. I don't even know what time of day it is. I come to you right now, God, simply because you said you can. And I come to you because I need help. Because I make mistakes. Because I have upset my kids. I've disappointed my wife. I've dishonored my parents. And Father, I thank you that you've put me in a home that's been blessed. Where my parents didn't divorce. Where I had some kind of security knowing that they'd be there when I got home, even if it wasn't always perfect. And Father, there are people here right now that are hurting, and they're hurting because of something other people have done. Maybe they're hurting because of something they've done. But Father, my prayer is that they would take the initiative, just like you did, to make it right. God, that they'd be willing to pay the price, just like you were. You paid with your life. God, you might just be asking us to humble ourselves and to admit that we're wrong. And Father, that they put forth the effort to get to the point where they're blessed, just like you did when you left heaven and come to us. And Father, if there's anybody who's never received that gift of your Son, taking the initiative, paying the price with his life, Lord, and putting forth the effort to initiate a relationship with us, I pray that today there's somebody listening and that's what they need, that's what they're missing, God, but they just go ahead and say, you know what? I don't have that, but I want that, God. If that's what you're offering, I take it. Forgive me for my sins. Forgive me for all the mistakes I made. Would you help me be a better person, Lord? Not because I can do it, but because you want me to do it, and I can do it through you. My prayer for these people, God, is that their homes will be blessed, and we live in that blessed place, because without respect, there's no blessing. Without effort, and doing what's right, there's no blessing. And so, Father, I pray that they do what's right. In Jesus' name, amen.
There is no guilt here. There is no shame. No pointing fingers. There is no blame. What happened yesterday has disappeared. The dirt has washed away, and now it's clear. And there's only grace, and there's only love. There's only mercy, and believe me, it's enough. My sins are gone without a trace, and there's nothing left now. It's only grace. You started over now, under the sun. You're stepping forward now. Your new life has begun. Your new life has begun. There's only only mercy, and believe me, it's enough.